Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Ides of March. Yeah, what is the Ides of March? The Ides of March basically is a celebration. Well, originally it was a Roman celebration of festivities to honor the god Jupiter. Jupiter, of course, is the Roman equivalent of Zeus. Every Greek god had its Roman equivalent. For example, Jupiter and Zeus, Hera and Juno, Venus and Aphrodite, Neptune and Poseidon. So it was originally a month of sacrifice to this god. The Greeks had the exact same thing in their religion. It was a lunar calendar event that would mark the middle of each month. So, and there were 10 months in the original Roman calendar. But we remember the Ides of March as the turning point in Western history because of the assassination of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, perhaps the greatest general in Western history, in Roman history anyway. The man who, from patrician birth, from patrician background, who changed the trajectory of political history in Rome because he took his assassination alone, then inspired the Roman Civil War, which resulted in those partisans of empire winning out at the end of the Roman Republic. Rome, from 509 BC to 22 BC, Rome existed as a republic, which was basically a similar form of government to what we have in today's society. You know, rule of law, um, ruled by a democratic system, a senate, as opposed to one person rule, like in the emperor, the empire. Now they had a senate during the imperial period as well, which was from 22 BC to 476 AD, the end of uh, Rome in the West. They had it, but it was more symbolic. Really, the be all end all was the Roman Empire, the Roman Emperor. He had the last say so, and that was largely because of Julius Caesar. The subsequent Roman emperors would take on his name. They too would be called Caesar. Now, at the time of Julius Caesar, Rome, as a city state and as an empire, was undergoing massive changes. There was a lot of political turmoil. The Senate, which had been effective for all those generations, now had seemed inadequate. It had been to a standstill. There was a lot of political division. And it felt for the longest time since the rule of Sulla, another um, Roman general who had wanted to institute one person rule. That um, Rome had been heading in a different direction than it had been before. Like I said, prior to this, Rome had an aversion to kingdoms because Rome originally started off as a kingdom. They had six kings in general, and these six kings of the original Roman state were completely inept, completely inadequate, completely corrupt. So Rome had this aversion to monarchy, inspired largely by the Greeks. The Greeks had expanded to the west and had established what was called the Magna Graecia in several states in southern Italy, including Naples. That's where they get the name Naples from the Greek word for a city, right? So the Romans had saw what the Greeks were doing and they took note of it because the Greeks, especially states like the Athenians and later on, as Alexander the Great expanded the Greek culture to the east, and later the Greek explorers expanded it to the west, they were largely democratic in the way they thought about things. And the Greek philosopher Plato had laid out the blueprint for what he saw as a republic. So the Romans admired this, and the Romans sought to put it into practice after the corruption of their kings. But now it had become largely decadent and inadequate. So it took a man like Julius Caesar to seize power, and through his military acumen and through his great successes in his Western battles in Britain and in France, he became this star general. And with the death of Pompey, who was another star general, the conqueror mainly of the East, mainly places like Egypt, places like Jerusalem, places in the Middle East, for example, he had become the conqueror. And he was now murdered and betrayed. So Caesar seized power with the help of Cleopatra, the last of the Ptolemaic pharaohs. She wanted to seize power from her brother, and he wanted to seize power of Rome, and he did so. But it worried the Roman people because they thought, oh, he's going to seize power and he's not going to relinquish it. He's going to take power for himself. So they plotted against him, and on the Senate floor, March 15th, 44 BC, they killed him and assassinated him. And that, again, like I said, sparked a civil war, and the civil war was won out by Julius Caesar's side, and forever then, Rome switched from being a republic to being an empire. And that was the death of the republican form of government until the establishment of modern times. The first republic being the Netherlands, and then largely, of course, the American government based its rule of law on the Roman system. But to me, this was a turning point because it marked the movement of power, the trajectory of power from the east, where it was, to the west, where it later became. From the ashes of the Roman Empire came great European societies like France, like Britain, like Spain eventually, which went on to achieve great things and conquer the entire Americas and then later Australia and New Zealand and create the blueprint for what we imagine as the Western world. If this had never happened, if Rome had never been established as an empire and spread their ideas of rule of law. Okay, Lisa is on here. She's saying, she's interrupting the live, but she's saying that I can do two videos no one cares about, but it doesn't affect us in 2024. But there's any stuff about Haiti that's happening that people actually care about. And people that, okay, she's talking about Haiti. Okay, let's tie Haiti into, mm, came to my mind, Lisa, because there's a meme going around about how often do you think about the Roman Empire? That's a funny TikTok type meme. And I just wanted to address what I thought was an interesting story about the beginnings of the Roman Empire. But let's address um, the failure of the democratic process in a place like Haiti. And the idea tying into this subject here that democracies can fail in places, and the idea of rule of law can fail in places like Haiti. Okay, and I'm gonna do a separate video. Yes, I'll do a separate video talking specifically about Haiti, but it ties in here. It ties directly in here because Lisa's saying the video here is not going to get any views because it ties directly into Haiti. Because just like ancient Rome, Haitian democracy has failed as well. Just like ancient Rome, the rule of law has failed as well. And when the rule of law fails, you get dictators. You get people like Julius Caesar, people like whomever is ruling in Haiti, whatever gangs and mob mentality. And it's letting you know that democracies are fragile things. Democracies and republics are not to be taken for granted. The rule of law is not to be taken for granted because at any time in history, the rule of law can fail. You know, you have the assassination of a political leader like Jovenel Moise in 2021. His assassination resulted in the breakdown of the political fragment in Haiti, much the same way, in a historical parallel as the assassination of Julius Caesar felt in Rome. And Lisa, you're wrong. It does affect us in 2024 because we learn from it the examples of what can happen when a charismatic leader rises to power and that charismatic leader is then assassinated. And the result is chaos. And Julius Caesar, I think, is the most prime example of a charismatic leader who rose to power through military might and then his influence fell. Another example might be in Haiti. Well, Lisa, when the American democracy, when American democracy and American republicanism fails, you then and others who say that it doesn't matter will then be looking at yourself and saying, wait, what are the historical parallels between the latter Roman Republican period and the Haiti isn't in the United States. That's correct. It isn't. But it similarly was based on the Republican ideals of the French Revolution. And the Republican ideals of the French Revolution, even more directly, the Republican ideals of the French Revolution, because Haiti itself was a French colony. So the Haitian revolutionaries of 1804 drew directly upon, okay, yes, Caesar wasn't in the US either, but the Haitian revolutionaries of 1804 drew directly upon the French revolutionaries who drew directly upon the Republican ideals of the 12 tables of Roman law. That they did. Caesar wasn't in the US, but it cannot be denied that these Caesarian ideals were the pre Caesarian ideals of the Roman Republic, tied directly in to the Constitution, did it not? I mean, all you have to do is take a look at the architecture in any American law building and see the influence of Roman law. Sure, Anglo Saxon and Germanic common law, which came subsequent to the Roman Empire, inspired a lot of the American system of democracy, and also the Athenians. So you could say that the Haitian colony, which was directly tied into France, is more influenced by the Latin-based government of the Romans than the United States. But the founders definitely understood how fragile Republican and democratic systems could be. Whereas I think the Haitian revolutionaries didn't grasp that as much. Not being so much from that tradition, being from a totally different tradition of French revolutionaries and the French revolutionary fervor that was catching during the time of the late 1800s, early 1900s, Lisa. So, and that kind of spirit has stayed with Latin America, that Cadillo spirit, that spirit of a strong man government, of strong dictatorships. But again, what happens to dictatorships? What happens when there is no separation of power? Things that happen in modern day Haitian society, like what has happened in modern day Haitian society since 2021, have happened. Hmm. So it's directly correlated, now that you want to bring it up. So we might think that it means nothing to us, right? We might think that it's completely irrelevant. The Ides of March, the the fall of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. But I think the most shining example is how fragile democratic and democratic republican forms of government could be, representative forms of government could be. Look at England, for example. When England overthrew its monarchy and then put in place the republican form of government in the late 17th century of Oliver Cromwell, it was not sustainable. So pretty soon they were calling Charles the First back. We talked about it in the Crown video. I think people respond to strong forms of government, strongman forms of government like Caesar was doing, because Caesar wasn't just seizing power for himself, but Caesar was reaching out to the poor and the despotic, and people respond to that. You know what I mean? He was giving out rations of wheat, rations of food, and people respond to that sort of socialistic impulse. But is it good? Is it a good thing that that happens? Is it a good thing that government power expands to the way it does? People will say that it is a good thing. People will say that um, socialism, certain enactments of socialism, that the likes of FDR, for example, put into place in the United States, or inspired by the likes of Caesar, or the more centralized form of government, for example, that Napoleon put in place to stabilize revolutionary France is better. But some people will say, no, centralized government as the founders of the United States. Imagine centralized government is not a good thing. Centralized government is an actual bad thing. But I think in places like Haiti and other parts of Central America and the Caribbean, it can be a good thing because it can be a cultural stabilizer. Now, the difference is, you're dealing with a former colonial society. Rome was never a colonial society. Rome was never conquered by any foreign entity, thanks in part to the various Punic wars that existed between itself and Carthage in ancient times. And Haiti was largely suppressed politically and socially by the French, by the Spanish initially, and then later the French and the Americans in the 1930s. So that's a difference there, a divide and conquer tactic. But anyway, guys, that's the Eyes of March. That to me represents a lesson in history and a move forward. Like I said, in the march of civilization from the centers of power in the east, like the Sumerians, the Parthians, the Greek Hellenistics, and the the Israelite kingdoms and the Assyrians, to centers of power being in the West, like France, Spain, and England. Peace. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And Lisa, history is always relevant to modern times. To understand the full picture of where we're going, we always have to understand where we've been. Thank you, Lisa, for contributing. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. Love you guys.